Thank you very much. He said 61 happy years of marriage, which is not bad out of 63. Oh, boy. It's great to be here. The last time I was here, Dr. Falwell was living, and I think a couple of weeks after I left is when he passed away. I sure hated to see that, because I hate to see it when we lose great Christian leaders, which our nation really needs. You know, we were founded by Christians. You know, our Constitution was written by Christians, not religious men, Christians like you. You know, and I always hate to see it. That's when one goes away. I was born down in Birmingham, Alabama. I was born. I don't know why you were cheering about that, but anyway. I was born in 1929. Oh, yeah. Well, y'all don't know what happened in 1929. What are you yelling about out there, you know? That's when we had the big depression where everybody lost their job. Oh, yeah, half the people lost their jobs. And of course, back in those days, my dad was able to I was just a kid. I said I was just a kid. I was born in 1929. But my dad was able to keep his job, but he didn't make hardly anything, you know. But every time one of my relatives would lose their job, back in those days, you move in with your family, you know. And my granddad moved in with us. He lost his job, and his wife had died, so he moved in with us. And Granddad and I shared a bedroom till I was 15 years of age. We had twin beds. He slept in one bed, and I slept in the other, you know. Then I had an uncle that lost his job. He moved in with us. He had two boys my age. They slept with me. You know, Granddaddy slept there, and me and my cousin slept here. In fact, I never slept alone till I got married. You know. Yeah, y'all know how that is. Yeah. My wife, she used to get on me, and you know what? She was every year and every game. Bobby, you love football more than you do me. Bobby, you love football more than you do me. I said, college or pro? Tell you something else about them. I bet you don't get this. Since all of my children, I had 6 children, since our children have all moved away, and Ann and I are by ourselves, when we go somewhere, she drives. She drives the whole time. I just sit there and hold the wheel, you know. Y'all did catch that, didn't you? Dadgum, you're doing pretty good. Oh, boy. Well, listen, here's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. I hope I can leave something with you that would mean something to you. And I was thinking, I think maybe the best way, 60 years ago, I'm sitting right where you are. I'm sitting in our auditorium down at, well, I went to school at Sanford University in Birmingham, which is a Baptist college, very much like you. Not as big, 4,000 students, you know. But 60 years ago, I'm sitting out there listening to speaker, you know. Now, I've got something none of y'all got. And that is, I have been there. Y'all hadn't. You hadn't been there yet. You're going to college just like I did. You're going to university just like I did, so I can get an education and get a good job. And then I went and got my master's degree, so I can even get a better job. You know what? But I didn't know what was ahead of me. I didn't know who I would. Yeah, I started saying I didn't know who I'd marry. I would too, because I married when I was a freshman. Oh yeah, she was in high school. She was 16. That's an Alabama thing. That's just something we do down there in Alabama. You know, when I think about that today, if I married her today, they'd put me in jail, wouldn't they? 16 years old. But that's been 63 years ago now. It worked. You know, it worked. But anyway, So anyway, I get out of college, and then I go through my life. And so 60 years later, I can look back and see exactly how God put my life together. And He did. And my biggest message to you today would be just like the previous speaker. God will work miracles in your life if you will let Him. God's alive. You can speak to Him. You can read about Him in the Bible, you know. But He will lead you in your life. Now, do you mind me telling you how my life went? Can I tell y'all how God led my life? Okay. Now, when I was 13 years of age, I came down with rheumatic fever, and the doctor put me in bed for a year. I had to drop out of high school. I couldn't do any kind of exercise. It was a heart disease, and the doctor even told my mother that I probably wouldn't live to be about 40. You know, that was passed down to me. And so I had to go to bed and stay out of school and everything. And so when I was sick, I can remember praying to God, God, if you will heal me, I will serve you through athletics or any way you want me to. If you will heal me. And at that time, I didn't know if He was going to heal me. But a couple of years later, I did get healed. A couple of years later, the doctor said, hey, your heart's fine. You can go back and play ball now if you want to. So I was able to play high school football and get a scholarship to college and play college football, you know. But I had told God I would serve Him through athletics, and that's what I tried to do. Now let me show you what He did. Okay, I graduate from college, played my last football game, and the athletic director at that school comes and said, Bobby, if you'll go get your master's degree, we'll hire you back here as an assistant coach. Now, how about you now? You know, when you graduate, you're going to want a job too, aren't you? You ain't sure where you're going to work. Now, they ain't a job out there for everybody. You know what? But they can be found. But anyway, there I was given a job, and I didn't even ask for it. So I go get my master's degree, and I come back and I coach there 2 years. After 2 years as an assistant coach, I get a phone call. Back in those days, we used to call, by the way, phone. And the president of South Georgia College called me and said, we're looking for a new football coach. Would you be interested? Well, I'd never heard of South Georgia College. I sure didn't know that president. But a head coaching job? Sure, I'll be interested. Well, come down for an interview. So my wife and I, like I told you, we're married. We go drive down to Douglas, Georgia, and get interviewed. And when we start to leave, he said, look, I'm going to interview a guy from Texas next week. And I'll call you after that and let you know if you have the job. We're going to offer you the head football, head basketball, and athletic director. So anyway, the next week he calls me. Coach Bowden, we're going to offer you the job. We're going to offer you the job. Head football, head basketball, athletic director. Now look, I knew nothing about basketball, but I wanted that football job. So I accepted it, right? Now, my first year, I coached basketball. I didn't do all that good in basketball. You know, we were 10-10. 10-10 is not quite real bad, is it? I mean, we lost 10 on the road and lost 10 at home. But anyway, I was the athletic director, so I fired me. I just fired me as a basketball coach. Got somebody else to come in and coach basketball. But anyway, I coached there 4 years. We won 3 state championships in football. And a lot of people don't know they used to have junior college football in Georgia. They don't have it anymore. It cost everybody went broke, you know. But we won a state championship the first 3 years. It came out second year. And then after my 4th year, the president called me in his office and said, Bobby, we're going to have to drop football. We're losing money. All the other schools are losing money. And so we're just going to no football. He said, we'd like for you to stay here as athletic director and head baseball coach. At least I had a job, you know, but I want to coach football. And folks, now listen, this is where God plays a role. I am not lying to you, and I think you know I'm not lying. It might have been a week later. It might have been 2 weeks later. But I think it was in that frame time, they called me from Samford University and said, Coach Bowden, we're looking for a football coach. We're fixing to start giving scholarships, and would you be interested in coming here as a head football coach? No, it reminds me of your school when you started. It reminds me of your school. I've kept up with this university. Well, I'm a Baptist, you know, and so I was interested in you growing, which you have done. You've outgrown us all, you know. But anyway, so gosh, go back to Samford University as the head football coach. Yes, and my salary jumped up. Now look, I was hired out of college, South Georgia College head coach, Samford University head coach, and I didn't apply. You usually have to apply to get a job, don't you? I didn't apply. They called me. Now, folks, that is God. That is God leading my life because I tried to serve Him. And I say serve because, hey, I did some bad things like we all do. I did some bad things like we all do, you know what? But I tried to serve Him, you know. And whatever mistakes I made, He forgave me and led me. Now, I coached there for 4 years at Samford. Back then, by the way, folks, it's called Howard College. Now, I want you to listen to this and see if you think God played a role. So I'm the head coach at Howard College, which is Samford University now. We had about 2,000 students. Small college, you know. And the Atlanta Quarterback Club is one of the biggest and most prestigious touchdown clubs in the country. And every year they have their final banquet around the end of December. And they bring in all these big-time coaches. This is going back to 1962, you know. So the Atlanta Quarterback Club, man, they bring in all these, they bring Bear Bryant in there, Shug Jordan, Bobby Dodd. These guys y'all don't remember now, but I remember them real well, you know, Paul Dietzel. They must have had about 14 major head coaches up there, big-time coaches. I get invited. The only small coach in a country, I get invited like them big-time guys. Now, why? Why in the world would they invite me? Because the president of that organization went to my school, and he wanted his coach there. So I got to go up there and sit on the main stage with all them big-time coaches. And you won't believe who they set me next to. And all these head coaches are sitting right up here, and they sit me next to a guy named Bill Peterson. Bill Peterson was the head coach at Florida State University. I'd never met him. I'd heard about Florida State, but I didn't know much about them. I had run track against them when I was in college, you know. But they sit me next to Peterson, and he and I get to talking, and he says, you know, I lost one of my assistant coaches, and would you be interested in coming to Florida State? Well, I'm the head football coach. Why don't I want to go in there as assistant? But Ann and I had felt like I needed to get into a major college if I was going to ever make it into big time. So maybe this is the opportunity. So we went down and got interviewed, and they hired me at Florida State as an assistant coach. Now, but folks, ain't that funny how number one, how in the world did I ever get there? And number two, why did they sit me next to Peterson? Now, I don't know what you think. What do I think? I think God set that thing up. I coached at Florida State as 3 years, and I was an assistant. I coached there 3 years. I wasn't real happy. Y'all hadn't been in this, but you can ask them. You ever had a job where you wasn't real happy? You ever had a job where you just didn't feel good? That's the way I felt back at Florida State in those days. So my wife and said, we need to leave. Things are not working here. Things are not moving here, you know. Well, we got offered 2 jobs. I was offered 2 jobs, one at Auburn and the other was at West Virginia University. So my wife and I, we thought about it, and we prayed about it, and we said, let's go to West Virginia. We'll go up there and learn those people in Pennsylvania, and we'll learn about those people in Ohio and all those people over in those rednecks over in Virginia. So anyway, we take the West Virginia job, and I'm assistant coach. I'm head of the offense for 4 years, right? And then the head coach resigns. See, I'm an offensive coordinator. We played in the Peach Bowl. We beat South Carolina in the Peach Bowl. And after the game, the head coach calls all of our assistant coaches in his office. He says, men, I'm leaving. I'm fixing to take the head job down at Texas Tech. Now, I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea, you know. But I'm fixing to take the head job at Texas Tech. If y'all want to come with me, I'd love to have you. Well, okay, now picture this. The head coach is leaving. That means there's a job open. The head coach at West Virginia is open. I'm an assistant coach on that staff. The thing for me to do is run see the athletic director, run see the chairman of the board, run see the president, and try to get that job. Isn't that what I should do? But I couldn't. My daddy was dying over in Birmingham, Alabama. My daddy was dying. I had to get to see him before he died. So I grabbed my 6 kids and my wife, and we took off for Birmingham. And I'm thinking, well, you just blew that job because one of those other coaches will become the head coach. So I go over to Birmingham, and I do get to see my dad before he died. The next morning, I get a phone call from the athletic director at West Virginia University. Coach Bowden, our board met last night, and we want you as the head football coach. Will you take it? Are you kidding? You kidding me? So now, hey, that's the 5th job, and I ain't applied for none of them. Who got me those jobs? Well, you think what you want to here. I know what I'm thinking. So I go to West Virginia, and so anyway, I got the job. So I was head coach up there 10 years. Then I get a call from Florida State. Florida State, and that's where I used to coach as an assistant. And they're looking for a head coach. They just fired their head coach. And they call me, Coach, they want, are you interested in this and that? And, well, I don't know, I might. I go down and get interviewed. I come back, my wife and I, we came that close of not leaving West Virginia. We liked it at West Virginia. We had 4 children going to West Virginia. We didn't want to run off and leave our children because they'd have to stay in school there, you know. And at the last moment, we decided, let's go home. Because that's my home. I was raised I coached in Georgia, I coached in Alabama, I coached in Florida. We're going to go home. Our mothers are in there. We lost our daddies. Our mothers are still living. We can be with them the last years of their life, so we go back to Florida State. I stayed there for 34 years. 6 jobs, and I hadn't applied for one of them. Now, let me say this. There were some jobs I applied for. I didn't get them. I didn't get them when I applied, you know. But ain't God good? Ain't God good? But see, you can't tell that story yet because yours is ahead of you. And you don't know what's going to happen to you. But I'm saying if you'll put God first in your life, put God first in life. You know, when I was coaching, a lot of times I'd get letters or calls from mothers all over the country. California, I remember a lady from California calling me. Coach Bowden, I'm not calling, no, she wrote me a letter. Coach Bowden, I've got a son, he's 15, his daddy's gone, and I'm trying to raise him. What can I tell him to be a success? And I'd get that letter a lot. What can I tell him to be a success? I'd tell them all the same thing. I'd say, you tell your son to get his priorities in order. You tell your son his number 1 priority has got to be who? God. You tell him to make God your number one priority. Well, Coach, what do you mean by that, number one priority? I mean, you tell him don't do nothing if you don't think God wants you to do it. Every time you're about to reach a decision to do something, the boys want you to come out with them that night. Ask God, God, is it okay with you? And if it is, do it. But if it's not okay, don't do it. And then you make your family your second priority. God, family. And a chance to go out with the boys. I wonder if Mama minds. I wonder if Daddy minds. If they think we shouldn't, don't do it. Don't do it. You know what? And if you'll follow that, I think you'll end up successful. Especially if you put God first, you see. Because my life is an example. You know, I'm not sitting up here telling you, making up a story about somebody else. I'm telling you exactly what happened to me. Now, you're fixing to graduate one of these days. Some of you taking too long, by the way. 6 years is entirely too long. You know, but anyway, all of you will eventually graduate, you know, and you'll be out there working on your profession, you know. And all I say is put God first and let him lead you, and he'll do it. There's two thoughts. Be sure I've got them written down here. There were two scriptures that all my life meant a lot to me, and every time I faced a ball game or anything else, I always referred to them. One was, I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things through Christ. You know what? Then the other was, with God, everything is possible. Remember that now. I want you to remember that as you go through life. With God, all things are possible. 2, I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. You know what? If you'll let those verses lead you, you'll be okay. I got 10 minutes up there? Can I tell y'all my favorite football story? Will you sit there and listen without getting up and running off? Okay, I'm going to tell you. First, I want to refer to a scripture. One of my favorite. I've talked on it 1,000 times. You know, Proverbs 4:23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, because out of it come the issues of life. Out of your heart comes the issues of life. Now listen, when they used to talk about the heart, and when the Bible talks about the heart, it ain't talking about no muscle. It's not referring to a muscle that pumps blood. It's talking about your will. I will. I can do anything. I will do it. You know what? It's talking about your mind, and it's talking about your emotion. That's your heart. You know. Keep your heart with all diligence, because out of it comes the issues of life. Your heart is full of little hidden seeds of thought. You know, everything you do starts with a thought, which becomes words, which becomes action, which becomes habits. You're known by your habits. You're known by your habits. And then your habits become your character. And your character determines where you spend eternity. Okay, now let me tell you the story. I'm going to try to get it quickly. This is the biggest upset ever in college football. University of Michigan and the University of Illinois. Okay, here we go. I'll try to get it. Now this goes back a long time ago, 1939. Now, 1939, Michigan had won the national championship the year before. And in 39, Michigan was undefeated. Yeah. They're fixing to play Illinois. Illinois ain't won a game. Illinois hadn't even scored a touchdown. They lost 4 games. They might have scored 1 touchdown. You know what? Played a small college and tied nothing. And they're fixing to play Illinois, fixing to play Michigan, the #1 team in the nation, which had 5 All-Americans. Now, I would know him. You won't. Tommy Harmon One of the greatest running backs ever was their tailback. Forrest Evashevsky was their blocking back. They had an All-American center named Frutig, and they're going to play this Illinois team and kill them. Now, Ray Elliott was assistant coach at the University of Illinois, and I heard him give this lecture. That's where I heard this story. And when he was telling us about it, he says, at Illinois, we had one of the worst teams we've ever had. We couldn't beat anybody, you know. And so anyway, picture this now. Friday night before the game. Are there any ball players in here? Are there any football players? There are some football players. Do y'all go out of town Friday night before the game? They do that? Most schools on Friday night before the game will take their boys out of town and stay in a, say 15 miles away, 20 miles, stay in a hotel. Why? To get them away from their family and their girlfriends and people who will distract. You know, so coaches, we always took our boys away. And this Illinois team had done the same thing. They'd gone out of town and were staying in this hotel. So it's the night before the game, and the boys were sitting there like y'all in wicker chairs. They had just eaten supper, and the coach was up here explaining the next day's last game plan. And when and so anyway, as they were sitting there, I'm leaving out something, but that week of practice, get this now, the week of practice, Illinois had a captain named Mel Harder. I spoke up in Carbondale, Illinois about 3 years ago, and I told this story. And somebody said, well, this is where Mel Harder was born. But anyway, Mel Harder was their captain, and that Monday, before they play Michigan, Mel Harder's mama dies. You got to go home. Your mama dies, you got to get home. So Mel Harder left, and coach says, boy, there was no enthusiasm at all. You know, the main enthusiasm they had was gone, their captain. But they practiced, and it was sorry practices, and they're going to get killed, and they're having their last game meal before they get up the next morning and go play, and they're sitting there in this room, and all of a sudden the back door opens. The back door opens. It was a small room, so that back door distracts. And everybody turned around to see who's there coming in our meeting. And it was Mel Harder coming back, their captain. And Mel Harder said, Coach, before y'all say anything, I want to thank y'all for those beautiful flowers you sent my mother. And I want to thank you for those phone calls. And I want to thank you for those letters. And if y'all think I came back up here tonight to get beat tomorrow, you're crazy. Coach said, man, you could have heard a pin drop. He said, there was a tear in every eye. I could see a certain jut to their jaws that was different. I could see a different glint in their eyes. And normally where I have to tell them, all right, man, it's 10 o'clock, y'all get up and go to bed. By 9 o'clock, each one of them had drifted off to their room. And Coach always went by their rooms before he went to bed, just to be sure everybody's okay. And he said as he went by each room, the boys were laying on their bunk, staring at the ceiling or staring at the wall. But he said, boys, they were a different looking group of guys, you know. And so that next day, what happened? They went out there and knocked off the University of Michigan, beat them about 3 touchdowns to 1. One of the biggest upsets ever recorded in college football history, you know. And but here's a question behind that story. This Illinois team that had not won a game, is that the same team that beat Michigan? Is that the same team that beat the #1 football team in the nation on an 18-game losing streak? Well, they wear the same pants. They wear the same helmets. They got the same set of muscles. But it's not the same team. It's not the same team, you know, because the issues of life come from where? You've been listening to me? The heart. Hey, y'all be good.